you enough like for coming for time and taking your time, your valuable time to just say this thing. So I want to get a couple of things straight. So first is the introduction. So let's start with it. So welcome to the show. I'm glad that you accept that my invite and you are here. I'm very you're an inspiring personality to me. I mean, I have seen you like a year back. I mean, you have trained me on marketing, and that has changed my perspective. And now I work with like two to three people, two to three organizations, and I carry the perspective with me. So I'm glad that you accept my invite and you are here. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, thanks, Amir. I mean, I'm very glad to be here. I'm happy to share any insights that I have on marketing and help the audience get a better perspective of how they should think about marketing.
Glad to know that, sir. Glad to know that. And sir, starting with my first question, I know that you are from a medical background, so you have graduated from Gandhi Medical College, and then you went on to work for a health company, and then from there you went on to be a tech founder. So how this transition happened, sir? And was it smooth for you from being a medical graduate to transition into a tech founder?
I don't think it's smooth for anyone from a medical background to get into a tech sector. I guess I think it's always obviously it's complicated. But I think I had made that decision like very early in my medical career that I would eventually get into business. So when I started exploring a little bit more, I mean, I started reading out like newspapers, like Business Standard, Economic Times, and stuff like that when I was at college. It was just to get an understanding and a grasp of how the business atmosphere actually works. So once I actually got out of college and I wanted to like set up a business and all that stuff, that's when I realized that without work experience, you can't actually build a successful business and all. So I kind of like got into like a couple of companies where I like got promoted quickly and I became a manager, was managing a bunch of people and all that. After that is when I kind of realized that hey, now I've got like really good experience of managing teams and managing like cross-border teams and all that stuff. So it looks like this is the time for me to actually take the plunge. That's when we started out, and when we first started out, I think we made like too many mistakes. I think more than I can count right now. And then slowly we kind of learned from that. We helped other companies, and then we learned from our own mistakes. And then we built a product. Then we sold it. We kind of had to like go through that process, and then now we are running another startup called VideoForm. So yeah, I mean, so this is the journey. I mean, like pretty much like any other founder's journey, but yeah.
Glad to know that. So glad to hear from you. And sir, one of my personal question is I see lot many medical graduates into founding a tech company. So how this journey started for you? Was it at your internship where you have learned like develop these skills, or was it there a knack for it right from your college days, or was it while working at a corporate you have developed this thing and got into a startup?
I think the early seeds of it actually they start from the college because I think if you are studying medicine, typically you are expected to like coordinate with like a bunch of folks. I mean, there's like an assistant professor, associate professor, there's a professor, and then you have your PG, then you have your nurses, then you have your attenders, then you have a lab, and you have a blood bank. Like you obviously like have the opportunity there to like coordinate with like multiple people at one go. So I think the seeds start from there. But I think eventually, I think when I got into the corporate world, I think that's where I kind of learned how to manage in a corporate environment, how to basically treat people like people, and not not use the Indian management style that is per se that typically that runs in that's very common around here. So I think over a period of all of these stuff is when I kind of learned that okay, like this is the right time for me to actually found a tech company.
And one of the point is like I'll come back to your your early startup called as Fast Deals. So Fast Deals was more into discounts, more into B2C, and then you transition into Gray Metrics. Gray Metrics was more into B2B. So was this transition smooth? And when you have marketed for the crowd, your mentality is like there's a lot of you need a lot of cash to burn, ads and everything and going on. When it's about B2C, it's about a lot about content. So was this transition? I mean, really smooth for you, or you had your lessons and then you move on to know, you thought like, I didn't know B2B is my cup of tea.
Well, there was like a bunch of lessons. I think, see, when I actually got into startups, I got into a B2C startup. So for me, it was more like a get rich quick scheme. So I thought like, hey, I had like done so much in corporate. So all I had to do was like, just like copy and paste in a startup. And then like suddenly I'll become rich and all that stuff. So I think what I kind of realized is I think startup is a different ball game altogether. So when we were working for a B2C startup, what we failed to discount was you have like a bunch of competition who will outspend you like 1,000 to 1. So effectively what happened is I think we learned a bunch of lessons. Even though we were able to get like a bunch of customers, we were able to like onboard a lot of stores in Hyderabad and all that stuff. We were unable to sustain it as a positive sustainable business. So we kind of had burnt a lot of money by then, and I think over a period of 1.5 2 years we kind of decided that okay, it was time for us to take a pause on the B2C side of it. B2C has different challenges, different mindset altogether. I think as a team, we were not exactly built for a B2C kind of a model. As a team, we are more of a B2B kind of a team, and that's why we transitioned into services, which effectively basically helped other companies with marketing services. So we did that for a couple of years, and then we kind of realized that okay, we like B2B, but then we kind of then slowly realized that okay, we wanted to like to move up market. That is, we wanted to do the same thing, but for a Western market. That's when we kind of decided that we'll not do it as a service, but we would actually create a product and then kind of package it and then sell it. So effectively, if you had to look at the challenges that come with B2C, B2C is like extremely tricky, like heavily money driven. B2B, there is always a chance for you to make a mark. If you choose a very small niche, I think you can still make a very good mark.
what you call this Gray Matrix was acquired by an ad agency. And I've shared the post with a lot of people in my network. And one was like Sunny said, so I shared the post, and he said like yeah, he have made a lot of money by selling it to an ad agency. But the other side of it is like you have to manage your team, and there is not cash flow positive for every week. So how do you? I mean, what is your take on this? Sir? So how do you keep cash flow positive, or are you worried about cash flow, maintaining the cash flow positive?
See, I think we have our own mechanisms to deal with it. Basically, I mean, the sale was effectively to make sure that we had runway to run our new experiment for the next year. That was the whole goal for our sale. So, I think I mean we didn't make a bunch of money. I think whatever money that we came in, we basically reinvested into the company so that we could like run this new experiment for a longer time and give us another shot at being successful at a startup. That was the whole goal of it. um, yeah, I mean, it's not exactly straightforward when you're running a startup. I think, like I said, I mean, 4 years after the startup is now when I earn 50% of my salary.
How was this journey, sir? I mean, I saw you maintain a consistent team right from your agency days, like Aqua Digital, to till now, like your startup VideoForms. The same team is there, like from agency till VideoForm. So, what do you think was more successful for you? Was it the company culture which helped you bring a great product like a VideoForms, or was it the team?
See, I think with a great team, I think you can do anything. I think that's the core of it. And I think in order to retain a great team, you need to like treat them like people. That's rule number one. I think most companies typically like treat people like shit, and I think you might want to like take a relook at how you can treat people in the 21st century. So I think for me, I think attracting talent was very important, and I think retaining talent is also extremely important. So effectively, that this means that there have to be changes in your management style when you go from a corporate to a startup. But I think one thing always remain constant for us is that we treat people equally. I think we don't have that uh, you know boss kind of a relationship. We always have like a colleague kind of a relationship where anybody can walk in and at any point and ask any question, and like I take care of some stuff, and they take care of some stuff, and it's more of a colleague kind of a relationship, and I think that's what we intend to keep continuing as we go along.
Sir, for me, a leader like when I see you, I see like your project right from Aqua Digital to now. Like all things are like futuristic. These are built for the future. I mean, I think like I have this intuition that video forms might someday might be acquired by HubSpot. So, sir, I would like to know more about your startup video forms and how you're planning to take on the conversational marketing thing.
I think a couple of things, right? I think what seems futuristic in India today is actually not futuristic. I think because we are so focused on what happens here on a daily basis that we kind of don't understand what is actually happening in the world that is like right across the ocean. So the point here is that using of videos in marketing and sales has been there for a while. What we're basically trying to do is we're basically trying to make it super easy for sales teams to basically use videos so that they can crack more deals. So the world has become remote now. I think whether most of us want to like it or not, most teams are still going to be working from home, and that's going to be the norm. So if you are basically not prepared for that kind of a work culture, I think companies effectively will get left behind. So as I think that this is a great tool for sales teams to basically make more revenue. But I think from a futuristic standpoint, I think, yeah, like the way that we package it, the way that we integrate with different tools, I'd say that, yeah, it's pretty innovative. But yeah, I mean, futuristic, I don't know if I'd call it that.
One thing I like about you is like you go a lot into reading. I saw you going for programs. I saw you going into incubators and talking with people regarding your product and getting to know about their journey. So, sir, as a founder, so how important is to be on the learning curve?
It's extremely important, man. I think, one thing that we have to all understand is, I think, there's so much to learn that, you can never know everything. I think even the best of people always keep on learning. And I think because we are like fairly so small in terms of, what companies do, like, at a global level. So it's very important for us to actually learn on, what happens at a global level. So typically what I do is, I mean, I pay for a couple of programs, which are run by like great marketers across the world. So these are like Patreon programs. We basically subscribe to their channel, and we basically like I listen to their thoughts on what they're actually doing on in terms of like content marketing, or in terms of how they approach marketing per se. So I think effectively over a period of last year, I think it has helped me like get a very good understanding of how marketers in a Western country think versus how a marketer in India would generally approach that kind of a problem. So yeah, I mean, I think like you have to be like constantly learning, and I think if that learning stops, I think your progress stops, I guess. And as a leader, if you're not setting that example up for your team, that you have to be constantly learning, I don't think your team can actually replicate that kind of behavior.
And sir, in the Hyderabad ecosystem, you are well known as a good marketer, and I idealize you for that. Like I have been with you, I've been with you. You taught me like what is marketing and what different things about it related to it. So I fancy you. I mean, I idealize you as a marketer, and for anything, I visit your content and I see how you're writing a blog, and I try to imitate it. So, sir, there is a lot of myths around marketing. Like I've seen people when I go into organization, like people come in and they say like marketing क्या है यार, सिर्फ social media पे post करना, or else passing on a communication message to a customer through WhatsApp or through call. So it's that simple. Why do we need you? Why do we need to pay you? So how do you tackle such clients, sir?
Yeah, I think the bottom line is, when their clients are actually saying that kind of a language, it effectively means that they lack the understanding of nuances of marketing. So I think, if you really look at it, I think we discussed this previously in our office, right? I mean, the marketing is basically like it's a compact mix of like a multiple things. I mean, there's content marketing, then there's video marketing, then there's branding, and then there's brand building, and then there's backlinks, then there's advertising. So there's like a bunch of stuff that goes on in marketing. And I think if for one particular business, if you're trying to do everything, I think that's the wrong thing to do. And I think most Indian founders typically, like again, small and medium scale businesses, would want more number of tasks to be checked instead of value that you bring to the table. So if you're working for 8-10 hours, then you're considered great. If you're only working for 3 hours but you're bringing great value, you're not considered great. I think that's the mentality that has to change. And I think like if like this task checking mentality that founders bring to the table is what actually percolates down. The middle management takes it, and they do the same thing with their employees. And effectively, what happens is, when you actually look at the broad picture, everybody is just doing task, task, task. Nobody really aligns with the goal that, hey, we have to like build our traffic from like 10K visitors a month to maybe 25K visitors a month. So nobody's actually working towards that goal. Everybody is like checking boxes. I'm doing X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3. So I think the alignment basically gets messed up in this kind of a checkbox kind of a culture.
And sir, to follow up with that, I would like to ask you, like, is marketing result oriented? I mean, people say like, okay, you have done this, you have passed on the message, you have called to people, you have sent a WhatsApp text, you have done this, you have written a blog, you have produced a video. So they say like, what is the result of it? What is the ROI of it? So a lot of people ask this question. So how do you, I mean, what's your take on this? Is marketing result bound, or marketing is about putting a message in the market and how the customer reacts is up to them?
See, I think anything that you're doing in marketing, I think there have to be results. But what you should understand is, when do you expect those results is very important. I think a lot of times what happens is that when you're doing organic marketing, we're basically investing it for the long term. So you're writing these blogs, you're writing this content, you're writing all of these pieces, in-depth pieces. You're doing some interviews, you're doing some like across marketing, co-marketing stuff. So these are all stuff that you build today in order to actually leverage them like year, 2 years later, when all of that actually kicks in. So and I mean, if you're actually running ads, like if you're spending money to run ads, generate leads, and all the stuff, the results are fairly instant in that sense. You would understand after you spend about $100, $200, or maybe $500 or something. You kind of get a sense that okay, this is actually working or this is not working. So the understanding that what is long term, what is short term, what are we doing, and which button you press, and what result can you expect, and at what time frame. I think that understanding, if founders bring to the table, would be great. But exactly that lack of understanding is what results in this tick box, check box kind of a culture. And yeah, that's avoidable.
So right from in my college, I was interning at my cousin's firm. So he has a software company. He develops websites and does digital marketing. So I was working with him. While working with him, we got to know like he used to tell like कि marketing ये है, सिर्फ ये करना है. We had a lot of interviews for marketing roles. So he used to talk like कि when people come and say like I will do this, I will do this. He used to say like कि marketing क्या है, ये करना है, ये करना है. And then as of now, I saw you and your work for Vijay Diagnostic or Abhiyas. It was like more about content creation. It was ads. It was like focused, targeted ads, and it was more about content. So this change in landscape from just putting out a message to being innovative in the market. So what's your take on it, and what's your perspective on marketing, the changing phases of marketing?
Again, I think like I said, I think everything in marketing. I think we start from like a task oriented thinking, like how should I approach this and all that stuff. I think the opposite approach is actually right. The opposite approach is like what does the customer need? What are their pain points? What are they looking for? I think if you approach it in the opposite direction, is when you actually start actually giving value to customers. So, for example, like a customer has a problem X. So how can I put out a piece which helps you that hey, 10 ways that you can solve this X problem, or 10 tools that you can solve this X problem, 10 different companies that have solved this X problem in Y different ways. So I think if you start from a customer centric point of view, and if you start writing content which actually provides them value, instead of just saying that hey, we are the greatest company on this planet, we just we are like 2,000 other logos, users, etc., and all that stuff, that's not going to make any difference to them. The only difference that it makes to them is this is my problem. How do you solve my problem? What's in it for me? I think if you come from that angle, I think marketing gets so much simpler and easier. And it's not that difficult, but I think it's the mindset of the customer that you should understand. And as long as you have a very good ideal customer profile in your mind, and you know exactly what you're trying to convey to them, I think it gets much simpler. But again, like I said, I think if you're just going by like a list of tasks that you can do, that's not going to be helpful in the long run.
To wind it up, like when I was with the office, you talked about the power of communities.
Mm-hmm.
Like never underestimate the power of having a community. Whether it's a small or big, just stick to it and build a community. You will get the ROI of it in the near future. So I want to know your perspective more on this. I want to hear from you like more on this community.
The 21st century is all about communities, right? I mean, if you look at let's look at a broad picture of what Facebook is doing. If you at some point, Facebook was all about giving feeds from your friends. Now I think if you have joined a few communities now, like Facebook groups for that matter, so your feed is more towards what is happening in the groups rather than what is happening with your friends. I think the shift is very visible and palpable because they understand that the future of conversations is about closed groups, like stuff that we do on WhatsApp, stuff that we do on Facebook groups now. So I think I think the power of community has been in the last 3-4 years, it has been more visible than ever. I can quote like at least 3 or 4 examples, like a large community that was built for like indie makers, that is called as indie hackers, was acquired by Stripe for a large amount of money. The same thing happened with Product Hunt, was acquired by AngelList. And I think I know this very small group of like about 10,000 or 20,000 odd people that this company called Lemlist. This is an email outreach company. They run like a very small community of 10, 20,000 people, and they are now making about $8 million a year by just leveraging this power of this community. So I think it doesn't matter if you have like 500 people, if it doesn't matter if you have like 100 people community, as long as all of these 100 people or majority of them are engaging with your content very regularly and they're like true passionate people, that's going to be like really helpful. So I believe that community is going to be like more and more powerful as you go along, and like if you have the bandwidth and resources, I think you should definitely try to build a community in your niche. This is going to be like super powerful as you go along.
And so when we talk about communities are mostly like user generated. I mean, the content is not branded content, but it's a user generated content. So what if there might be misuse of it? Like, let's suppose a political party making use of a community to drive certain hate speech. So what should be the regulations laid out by tech firms in order to curb these activities?
I think when it comes to political space, I have no idea of how to do it and all. I'd like to steer clear of any political conversations per se. But if you're a business and if you're running a group, like exactly what needs to be talked about and what shouldn't be talked about. You make your rules very clear. There's no political discussions, no hate discussions. Don't abuse each other. Like just talk about what's your problem, or what you need done, or if you have anything valuable to share, please go ahead and share. But apart from that, if you engage in any behavior that is opposite to your community's rules, I think you just kick them out.
So you mean to say like there should be regulations in place so that nothing gets out of hand?
Yeah, I think when you're creating any group, right? I mean, you have to have a set of rules that you lay out, very much ahead, and you have to tell what's the aim of the group very, very, very much ahead of the game. So you have to tell them that this is what this group is for. This group is for like discussing marketing stuff, for example. So if someone comes in and tries to sell an iPhone, like exactly that that's not relevant for the group and it's not adding any value for the group. So you basically like say that, hey, you know what, like this is your warning number one, like don't do this, otherwise we're going to kick you out of the group. So that's basically it's more of a moderation kind of a job where you basically like make sure that the content that users are putting in is valuable for the whole community at large, rather than like someone like trying to sell an iPhone and make a profit for himself like that.
And thanks a lot for coming and taking your time and to come to the show. When I always admire you, and I see your leadership like quite ideal for a future kind of a founder. I mean, that's the reason I have called you out, because this is my second episode. The first was with Rakesh sir. The reason, I mean, I idealize you both. I mean, the kind of leadership you guys have and the kind of mentality you have, like, is essential for the small scale business and the medium scale business. So that's the reason I requested you to come onto the show. And I'm very glad that you accepted my request and come on the show. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot for taking out time to come on this show.
Thanks, Amir. I think I'm glad.